Okay, so before I talk about how the mainstream hates men, I want to talk a little bit about hatred. Okay, what to do when somebody hates you. Okay, take it from me, because I am a man who has been hated by a lot of people. I just inspire it in people. You know, some people inspire great love and affection, and good on them. I'm the exact opposite. I inspire deep-seated hatred. And from the hatred that has been cast my way over the decades, I've distilled a few lessons that are key and that you should always remember when it comes to being hated. As you who are watching it, you who are a man and who are watching this, you're hated by the mainstream. Well, these are the lessons to be learned about being hated. Number one, never moan and groan about it. Okay? I mean, when you're like, oh, people hate me, like a little fucking faggot bitch, pussy. Oh, it's so distasteful. It's distasteful, and what's worse is that moaning and groaning, you start to internalize that attitude, that weakness, and it's pointless. So don't moan and groan about being hated. Okay? Number one. Number two, don't try to plead and placate the person or institution or group or whomever who hates you, okay? Because you're not going to get anything. If you try to plead with them, like, please don't hate me. What can I do so that you don't hate me? I'll do anything. What will make you happy and not hate you? Because I want you to love me. Please love me and don't hate me at least. You're not going to get anything except make yourself look weak. The people you're pleading with, that you're trying to placate, they're going to look at you and they're going to figure that you're a weakling. And they're going to, it's not that they're going to hate you more. No, they're going to try to roll over you. They're just going to try to step all over you and just destroy you. Because that's what happens when somebody hates you and you try to plead with them and placate them so that they don't hate you anymore. The person who hates you considers you weak, because here's the third issue about being hated, and it's the most important one. You see, hatred comes from fear. The person or the institution or whomever it is who hates you, it's because they're afraid of you. That's the key issue that you have to understand. And if you try to plead with them and placate them, they learn that you're not to be feared. Okay? And that's why when somebody hates you, what you have to do is that you got to spit in their eye. You got to make it clear that you don't give a shit, and you got to double down and just encourage the hatred. Spit in their eye, poke them in the eye, and laugh in their face. Because then they'll know that, they can hate you all they want, but they'll be more afraid of you. Especially if you're willing to go all the way. Okay, and that's something else, and it's perhaps the fourth and final lesson. If somebody hates you and they push the issue, you've got to be willing to go all the way, no matter the cost. Because I'll tell you right now from experience, hard-earned experience that I learned in playgrounds and recess periods when I was a boy, and it's lessons that have stood me well for over 40 years. If you are hated and they push you around, you hit back with everything. And it doesn't matter if they kick the shit out of you, okay? You got to hit them back hard so that they know that their hatred of you, their fear of you, it's warranted, because you're going to hurt them if they mess with you, okay? Okay, let me get on with the topic, which is a very important one, which is how the mainstream hates men. For any disinterested observer, it's obvious that the mainstream in the Western democracies hates men. And they express it daily. And they express it on every day to every age group in just about every situation. It's only the people in the democracies of the West who have deluded themselves into thinking that it's a conspiracy theory, this hatred of men. No. It's an actuality. And we got to live with it. Okay? And we see it every day. We see it, for instance, with small children, with boys. Boys are rambunctious. Boys are just, naturally, physically more aggressive. You take a 5 or 6 year old boy, right, and you leave him alone in a garden, and he'll climb to the top of the tree. Yeah, he'll just do stuff because he's a boy. Boys are naturally more rambunctious. They are naturally more aggressive. They get into fights. I have 2 small children. I have a 3-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter, right? Now, My 3-year-old son, you know what he discovered? That when he wants to get a cookie, there's this little stool he can move over, and he crawls up onto the kitchen counter, and then from the kitchen counter he stands up and he crawls up into the cabinets and gets the cookie. You know, my daughter, who's 2 years older, and actually I would venture to say a little bit more physically coordinated than my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old daughter would never dream of doing that. But my 3-year-old son, he's like, yeah, fucking A, let's do that. Because he's a boy. Boys today, what happens? You know, they go to school, even in preschool and kindergarten, and they're medicated, you know, to make them more docile. They're medicated, and their rambunctiousness is diagnosed as a disorder. Their natural energy, product of their testosterone, is vilified. It's made to be something bad. They're basically treated, boy children are treated as if they were defective girls. Yeah? Because all the girls, because they are girls, are far more docile, far more compliant. You know, studies have been done, and this is uncontroversial. Women, girls, are simply more agreeable than men and boys. But the boys, they're treated the same, and if they don't act like girls, then they are considered defective, and they must be medicated. Now, these boys who are medicated, well, later on, when they hit puberty and after, what happens to them? They're treated not just as defective girls, which they are, but any screw-up that happens in middle school or junior high school and high school, it can affect their lives for the rest of their lives. It determines what colleges or universities they get to go to, what career opportunities they might have. You know, because a naturally rambunctious and intelligent boy will have an incredibly difficult time sitting still for 8 hours in a schoolroom. A normal boy, a normal healthy boy will want to go out. He won't be able to sit still. A 13-year-old boy, I mean, to demand of him that he sit there for 8 consecutive hours learning stuff, it's impossible. They can't do it, but they are expected to. And if they don't do it, they are hindered in their life's journey. They are held back. They don't get to go to the AP classes in high school, so they don't get to go to the Ivy League schools. And it doesn't matter if they are intelligent. They could be brilliant. They can be geniuses. But if their behavior is too out of line, too outside the norm, and the norm is established by girls, not boys, okay? It's not that girls are considered defective boys. It's that boys are considered defective girls. And so they're medicated, and they're hindered in their life's journey, and they are held back. And who survives this system of education that we have? Who gets into the best schools, the Ivy League schools and stuff like that? I saw it. You know who it was? The more compliant boys. Not the smartest boys, the more compliant ones. The ones who didn't, you know, object to anything that they had to do, who jumped through every hoop. Basically automatons. Those were the guys who in our current society progressed. And I saw that. I saw that in the early 90s, that the guys who were in the Ivy League schools were just more docile, okay? And I saw it because at that time I was older. I'd taken 5 years off, basically. I'd, you know, bummed around, done this and that, and, you know, got into trouble, okay? Because when I finished high school, I just couldn't sit still. I couldn't do college when I was 18 and 19. I was just too energetic. It was only when I got to 22, 23 that I simmered down. I had a little bit of life experience, and I realized that I wanted to go to college. And that's when I went to an Ivy League school. And that's when I saw all these other kids, all my classmates, docile as Hindu cows, really. I mean, just, they did not make waves because, of course, because the system has been created such to advance those who are compliant, who are agreeable, who are, quite frankly, less masculine. Soy boy cucks. Those are the ones who rise in our current society, and that's a fact. Now, once those young men graduate from college or technical school or whatever the fuck, I mean, you know, mid-20s, right? How are they treated? Well, everything that they do, the natural expression of their masculinity, is called, well, it's called toxic masculinity. It's labeled as a disorder. Just being a man is a bad thing. It's labeled a disorder, it's a toxic masculinity, and the things that men, young men, naturally do, they are vilified. Okay? Spreading, mansplaining, the male gaze, it's all negative, and it's all just the natural inclinations of being a man. Okay? I mean, shit, I'm in a subway car, of course I'm going to spread my legs. Do you know why? Because I got a couple of testicles between my legs. And so if I shut my legs like a girl, what happens? My balls get squeezed. So naturally, I man spread. Okay? I have to. That's the physical reality of carrying a couple of balls between my legs. But of course, if you're a soy boy cock or a little fucking faggot or a little gelding, yeah, of course you can, not man spread and be more like a girl. Yeah, it's fucking easy. You see? I'm ranting, yes, I know. But you see, it goes to a more serious point here. The natural, stereotypical inclinations of men are vilified. Okay? The natural inclination, young men love to explain shit, especially the shit that they actually know about. They love explaining it because it's not only that they're showing off their ability, which is, of course, part of a mating strategy, because showing off how smart you are, attracts mates, of course. But it's also by explaining, they feel more confident in what they are doing. It helps them. It's a stereotypical behavior of young men. And I know this without having to read a psychology book because I was a guy, okay? I'm 50 now, and I do shit, and I don't really feel like explaining shit. But when I was 25, fuck, I loved to explain every fucking thing that I was doing because it made me feel more capable, more alive, more a man. It's a stereotypical attitude of being a man, and it's vilified. More to the point, and something extraordinarily serious. Men aren't being given any guidance. No guidance whatsoever. It's basically like young men today in our society are being like scooped up like a chicken, and they open the window from the 10th floor and they're tossed out the window. And they're yelled after, see if you can fly, kiddo. And the kid has to just fly off. And yeah, of course, in the ideal world, he soars like an eagle. But the reality is that poor kid is going to fall right down and splatter all over the sidewalk, right? In a bloody, pulpy mess. Because they haven't been given any guidance. And any effort to give guidance to young men is stamped out almost instantly. Notice any place where young men can gather and get guidance from other men, older men. Do you see such places around? No, you do not. And if ever such a place arises, there's a whole hoopla, of discrimination, has to be inclusive and all this bullshit. But you need guidance as a man, as a young man, from an older guy, okay? Because there are a lot of things about being a man that you can learn on your own. You can learn on your own and you can figure out shit. Yeah? A lot of things that you can learn from your friends. Not everything, okay? Lots of things. But you have to be a little bit careful there because it depends on the friends, okay? You hang out with the right crowd, with good kids, with solid moral foundations, and you're going to learn a lot of good things. You hang around with gangbangers and you're going to learn how to shoot a gun and kill people randomly. You see what I'm saying? Because it's a natural state of affairs. When you're a young guy, you hang out with your friends and you want to be like your friends. And if your friends are horrible people who go out and murder other people, well, you're going to turn into a murderer now, aren't you? This is what's happened with black young men in the United States, for instance. They're being raised by their friends, and their friends are all gangsters, and so they wind up being gangsters and doing horrible things. See, it's a natural state of affairs if there's no guidance, because young men need guidance. They need older men to teach them how to be men. Okay? Think of it like this. Say it's like being a painter. The craft of being a painter, of painting a painting, painting the Mona Lisa or whatever the hell, right? You can learn a lot of techniques all on your own. Okay? In point of fact, in that situation of being a painter, most of what you learn on your own by doing it, right? Same with being a man. Most of being a man, you learn on your own, trial and error. But see, if you have a painting teacher, that painting teacher can give you little tips, little tricks, and will give you his experience. And that experience will save you from making mistakes. It'll make things easier for you. And same with being a man. See? You have an older man who teaches you stuff, who is self-consciously trying to teach you things. And you're going to advance more quickly. Or at least you'll avoid a pothole. You'll avoid a mistake. And especially in this day and age, in the society we live in, that so much of your future life depends on not making mistakes when you're young. You see? So that kind of guidance is essential. But that guidance, it's nowhere to be found. And it's actively stamped out, all in the name of inclusivity. Okay? That if there's a space that's just for men, it has to be more inclusive, i.e., women have to be brought in. And therefore, men, just because of the fact that there are women around, they become self-conscious. And they're not able to express their masculinity in full. And so they're stunted. They're not allowed to grow and develop because of this inclusivity bullshit. And those of you, those fools who say that a woman can teach a man to be a man, you're a fucking idiot. You're just a fucking imbecile. And to extend the metaphor of painting. See, like, imagine I were to say to you that, yeah, you're taking this painting class, sure, but you know something? We're going to have this teacher, but instead of him being a painter with experience and a successful career as a painter, we're going to bring in the sculptor to teach you how to be a painter. You'd be like, oh, what the fuck? I want to be a painter. I need a painter to teach me how to be a painter and the techniques and the little tricks to be a better painter, not a sculptor. And imagine, the supervisor or principal or whomever the fuck says, no, you have to be inclusive. You have to be inclusive, and that's why we're going to bring this sculptor to teach you how to be a painter. You'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Same fucking thing. Same fucking thing. A woman cannot teach a man to be a man. It's simple as that. See? Because also what happens is that women are naturally just, how can I put this? They're softer. Okay? To be a man, you have to learn that life is hard. And in that teaching, in that apprenticeship, you got to take your licks. You got to learn to take the hit. Okay? Now, women, of course, they don't want that. They want everything soft and gentle and nice. They're not going to be the hard taskmaster that a man would be. Because an older man will know how far you can push a young man because he used to be a young man. A woman, no matter how wise and intelligent and just a great woman overall, she'll never know because she was never a young man. She just doesn't know. But our society forbids any kind of apprenticeship, any kind of shared experience between older men and younger men so that they can advance and grow. And insofar as a male-only space, they do not exist. Not today. And they're not going to exist for the foreseeable future, quite frankly. And, the proof of this, let me ask you, can you name an all-women's college in the United States? Offhand, I can name like half a dozen, like Smith, Wellesley, and whatever the fuck, right? A whole bunch of women-only schools, colleges, right? Can you name one all-male college? One in the Western democracies, huh? Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, they all used to be all-male. Not anymore. They're inclusive. So there's no space for men. And a lot of guys say, well, I've got my fraternity brothers, and with my fraternity brothers, I learn a lot. Fuck you, okay? Your friends at the fraternity or whomever the fuck, they can teach you a lot, sure. Everything from rolling a joint to, good pickup lines. But for a life, your friends can't teach you shit because they're as clueless as you are, because they're young. It's like I always tell you, I know shit, not because I'm smarter than you, but because I'm older. I've already been there. I've done it. I've seen it. It happened to me or it happened to guys I knew. Everything, okay? I'm 50 fucking years old. So of course I've learned a few things, if only because it got beaten into me by time and experience, right? But, your friends when you're 20, 25 or whatever, they don't know shit because they're too young. But our society refuses to create such spaces where young men can learn. And it abolishes those spaces the second they arise. Now, here's a problem of this hatred that our society has for young men, because it is a hatred, because it's a fear of young men's natural impulses. And what are those natural impulses? It's aggression, and it is an ability to work with chaos, to thrive in chaos. Okay? Now, for various reasons that I'm realizing I'm going to have to cover in a separate video. See, the reasons why our society, the mainstream today, hates men, there are too complicated for this particular video, but the mainstream society does not realize that its hatred for us is eventually going to bring about the ruin of mainstream society, okay? And I'll explain why. See, it's going to happen for two reasons, or let me phrase that. The destruction of mainstream society, of our society, it will have two outcomes, okay? And both outcomes are because of its hatred of men. Now, the first outcome, remember I said before how the young men who advance in our current society are more docile, they're more weak, okay? I'm not saying that they're necessarily more gay or less tea or something like that. They're simply more docile, okay? You can be a very manly man and, like a football player and all the rest of it, and be extremely docile in your temperament, okay? I mean, one does not negate the other. The young men who are rising to positions of leadership in our society today are extraordinarily docile. They go along to get along, right? They don't make waves. Now, these men, these weak men, well, in the face of competition from other societies that do not have this problem that our society has, the Muslim world, the East Asia world, the Southern Asia world, okay? These more masculine societies where men are allowed and encouraged, in fact, to express their masculinity, where their masculinity is a dominant force in those societies, well, those societies, they're going to overwhelm the Western democracies. The Middle Easterners, the Africans, the South Asians, the East Asians, they are going to overwhelm, and they are, in fact, overwhelming the Western democracies. Because the men who have risen to positions of power and leadership in the Western democracies are weak. And those weak men do not have the gumption, the moral self-confidence to defend the Western democracies, to defend this mainstream society that we live in. You see what I mean? And this is catastrophic, okay? So the end of our society will be because these weak men are not able to defend it from the aggression of the other more virile societies that are encroaching on the Western democracies. Now, that's one outcome. The second outcome, and frankly, it's the outcome that I personally hope, is that our current system, the system of the Western democracies, it disenfranchises the more energetic, the stronger young men. The fact of the matter is that I myself feel disenfranchised because somebody like myself, with the energy and gumption that I have, I should be better positioned in my society. But for various reasons, I have been marginalized. And there are a lot of young men who are very, very capable, but they have been marginalized. They got drunk when they were 16 and crashed a car, and because of that, they couldn't get into the AP classes, and they couldn't, go to the Ivy League school, and they wound up getting, technical education, right? The kid who was he just couldn't sit still during high school, so he got shitty grades, and therefore fewer academic opportunities, and therefore no opportunities to rise. There are a bunch of YouTubers I've noticed that are extraordinarily intelligent, extraordinarily cultured, well-read, all the rest of it, who you realize that they had no outlet in the straight world. They had no possibility of advancement in the straight world. Because when they were young, they were too rambunctious, they were too energetic, they were too male, okay? They were too masculine to make it in the straight world when they were young, and so they were marginalized. And as they've become adults, they found an outlet for their creativity and their intelligence and knowledge and erudition by way of, having a YouTube channel or some shit like that, right? But those young men, disenfranchised young men of quality, well, those young men, they keep on being vilified and stepped on. And what's going to happen eventually? Well, they're going to coalesce. They're going to coalesce and they're going to arise. They're going to arise and overthrow this mainstream and usher in some potentially new social system. I personally hope that that is the case, because the system that we currently have is catastrophic, because the Western democracies will be overrun by these more virile people, the people of Africa, of the Middle East, of South Asia and East Asia. We are seeing it now. We're seeing it in Europe. The Europeans are being overrun, and frankly, it's gotten to a point of no return. The Europeans are done for, unless the disenfranchised young men, and there are legions of those disenfranchised young men of talent who the society has stepped on and marginalized because when they were young, they were not docile enough. Okay? If those young men coalesce and strike back at the invaders and take back their continent and reform their society, well, maybe, under those circumstances, there's a chance. There's a chance of renewal. There's a chance that those disenfranchised young men, so many of them and so brilliant, they can take up the reins of the Western democracies and build something new. Okay? But if our society continues to repress the young men and is successful at repressing those marginalized young men, and if those weaklings who are in power, people like Marco Rubio, for instance, fucking quisling little wimpy faggot fuck, guys like that, who have just no moral self-confidence, no gumption, no energy, no strength of character, if those guys remain in power, if those guys are the ones with their hands on the wheel of the Western democracies, they're going to do nothing because they don't have the balls to do anything, to save our society. And so our society will be overwhelmed. See? And this is the tragedy. The hatred that the mainstream has for men and masculinity, that hatred is going to cause its own destruction